Hello, welcome to our webinar. I'm Lorna Spargo. I'll be your host for this event. I would like to thank all of our speakers who will introduce you to the emotional impact of vehicular pedestrian interactions, collisions, and the long-term impact. We are hoping to make a difference for children in school zones and crosswalks throughout the region, and we need your help to do that. I would like to introduce to you Nancy Stammers, who's been part of the Model School Zone project specifically, but has also been a volunteer, worked on committees with Safe Communities Wood Buffalo to help improve student safety throughout the region. Nancy?
Hi. So the way that we came about this project, just to give you a bit of history, we had a group of volunteers, different stakeholders throughout the region that volunteered to work with back to school safety education events. So we had pamphlets developed that was all local information. We partnered with RCMP and bylaw and went out into the school zones with all the schools in Fort McMurray and delivered safety messaging to the parents. As we were doing that, and we've been doing that for the last 3 years, so as we were doing that, we started to notice that a lot of the concerns in the school zones were indeed the parents driving through the school zones, dropping off their children, where a lot of people think that it's regular vehicle traffic that's speeding through the school zones. It's actually the parents that are causing a lot of the safety concerns. So what we did is we identified St. Martha's School as one of the schools that there was an opportunity to create a safer school zone, a safer environment for the children. So we applied for a project through Safe Kids Worldwide, and we're accepted as the only Canadian school, which we're very proud of that, the only Canadian school that was accepted on an international project to take a look at model school zones. What would a model school zone look like? What would be the opportunity to change safety in that school zone, and how can we create change through education, awareness, through enforcement, and through engineering, working with the municipality. So we embarked on that project, and it was quite a lengthy project, and then from that, which has just wound down just recently, we're taking that information as well as the other projects that were worldwide and taking the best of the best, kind of the best practices. How can we improve safety in school zones? So from that information, we're looking now, our committee is looking at rolling it out to other schools within the Fort McMurray area and in our rural communities as well. So that's kind of a background on how we got started, and hugely positive because of the quality of stakeholders, the engagement, the commitment of the stakeholders that we had involved in the project. And it's a huge thanks to them for having the passion, as well as the parents and the schools that have made this happen, because we really want our school zones safer, but also extend that out to our crosswalks, our walking, our pedestrian community. How can we make that safer within our region?
Hello, my name is Melanie Kwolek. I was born and raised in Fort McMurray, Alberta. I've lived here for 41 years. I am here for 2 reasons today. One is my son Braden, he's in grade 6, he attends St. Martha. So the whole safety issue about traffic, the crossroads is very near and dear to my heart on that level. The second reason I'm here is crosswalk safety affected me in another way, and that is to do with my daughter, Brianna Kwolek. On the morning of January 31st, 2007, Brianna was headed to school at Father Mercredi, and she had to take a transit bus. She left our home that morning, and she had to go across a crosswalk. It was a controlled crosswalk. She hit the button, and the light turned from green, yellow to red. She proceeded with caution, like we teach all of our children to do. And all of a sudden, a gravel truck with a trailer in tow, which was speeding, hit her. It hit her, it collided with her. She became somewhat attached to the front of the truck, and then was thrown 30 feet and landed on the concrete. She was gone from our house for maybe 8 to 10 minutes when I received the phone call that Brianna was hit by a truck. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe what happened. I thought, right away I thought, maybe she has a broken leg, so forth. I was taken by a family friend to the hospital where the paramedics had already taken Brianna. She lay there in emergency. One look at my daughter, I knew that it was not good. Our family was met by Dr. Silve and staff at the regional hospital. They told us that they were going to fly out Brianna to Edmonton. They weren't exactly sure the extent of her damages. I was employed by Syncrude, so they put us on the jet, the corporate jet, flew us out. We went to the Stollery in Edmonton, Children's Stollery Hospital, which were incredible. We were met by victim services, led to a room. We waited for maybe an hour, and then 2 neurosurgeons came and told us that Brianna's brainstem was dislodged and totally severed, and that she would have no function. Your brainstem looks after your breathing, just normal bodily functions, and there was no hope. We stayed there for 4 days with our daughter, because of course you can't believe what is happening to you and your child at 15, your firstborn, your baby, all because of the choices one person made that day. We decided to donate. We decided to donate Brianna's organs. She was hit by a gravel truck, with a trailer, which is huge, and my daughter didn't have a broken bone in her body. She was fully intact. Everything was perfect about her. She had some bruising right here. The only thing was her brainstem, which is, I think in itself, it showed me that, okay, there's a reason for that happening as well. And that's why we went ahead with the gift of life. We donated Brianna's heart, her kidneys, and her liver. So there was 4 people that were recipients. One was a grandmother in BC. One was a 16-year-old girl actually in the Stollery that, we seen her in the hallways in the NICU. And and then 2 gentlemen. So I know our daughter lives on, and it's just not the way we wanted to be, but so we went through this whole process, and after the doctors said that Brianna was legally dead, we were led into another room, and we were approached by two officers of the RCMP, and they told us that charges were going to be laid officially against the defendant. He was getting charged with criminal negligence causing death, and dangerous driving causing death. After we said our goodbyes to Brianna, we went back home, went through the funeral and everything, and it was just a surreal, I don't even know how to express what you go through. You go through every emotion under the sun. You're mad, you're angry, you're sad, and all this time I have a 5-year-old little boy who doesn't understand where Nana is. That's what he called her. Once the charges were laid, we went through the whole process, the whole procedure of the criminal proceedings. It was a long haul. It took like 2.5 years from beginning to end. We went through multiple Crown prosecutors. The criminal negligence causing death charge was dropped. They then plea bargained with the defendant's lawyer, dropped the charges to just the dangerous driving causing death, and he pled guilty. He got a 3-month suspension on his license and a $2,000 fine. And he walked out the courthouse just like I did, right beside me. And he has a little girl, and I had to get up and give my victim statement at the end of the court proceedings, and I just wanted him to look at me and say, I'm sorry for my actions. It helps with the closure. But my daughter was here for a short time, but she did miraculous things, I think. She gave up herself. We taught Brianna everything about crosswalk safety, what to do correctly, and she did it. The traffic specialist all said, she did what was right. They reenacted the whole accident scene, and he was classified to be going 69 kilometers an hour or not more. If he would have been going the posted 50 speed limit, he would have stopped just inches away from hitting her. It would have made all the difference in the world. If anything, that's my message today, just to realize when you get behind the wheel, you make decisions, you make choices, and we're all accountable. It's driving is not a right, it's a privilege. And no one should lose their child in a crosswalk. That's false sense of security that we've all placed in our children's hands. And it's us that are making the mistakes, the parents. So please, if you take anything from this today, from me, I hope this is the message. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corporal Mark Michon. I'm with the RCMP here in Wood Buffalo, Fort McMurray, Alberta. I've been attached to traffic unit here in Fort McMurray since I got transferred in 2010. I've been a police officer for 12 years. Through my 12 years of service, I've been working in 3 different provinces across Canada, including Quebec, New Brunswick, and now here in Alberta. I've been doing traffic enforcement for 12 years as well, along with other tasks. I've been seeing drivers' habits through those 3 provinces. And it's unfortunately to say, but since I got here in Fort McMurray, I see traffic habits getting worse and worse every single year. We're talking about school zone, pedestrian cross, but also for speeding and other matters under the Traffic Safety Act, use of highway, and other regulation. The reason why I'm here today is try to sensibilize people concerning crosswalk in school zone. As Melanie spoke previously, as a parent, she was a victim of a collision that unfortunately she lost her daughter. It takes a lot of strength for a parent to come in front of people and testify about it, and I gave her a thumbs up for it. Myself, as a parent, I'm pretty concerned about the school zone in this area. We've been patrolling the school zones. Unfortunately, since my section is just under manpower now, we try to be everywhere at the same time, but unfortunately we cannot be everywhere and watching every crosswalk. And that's coming down to the drivers, every single drivers, including parents dropping off parents, but also other drivers driving through the school zones to go from point A to point B. Okay, there's a reason why there's a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour. It's to give drivers enough time to react and stop their vehicle in case of something happen. In this particular case here, most of school zones are well marked on the pavement with crosswalks, and also kids in the schools are pretty well educated, and they're getting most than likely education from home, from parents as well, that are concerned about their own safety and for the safety of their kids. Most than likely, the kids will wait until they get a green hand or a little man to cross those sidewalks. Some of them, they will try to run through the crosswalk at the last minute. Be more careful for those kids. I understand when your light is green, you have the right of way, but be more careful, and you have to look around for those kids that exactly wait until the last minute just to cross. All right. Also, one main concern that we see in the school zone are the parents that are double parking in the streets. I understand there's a lot of parking to just drop off your kids, but I've seen a lot of people double parking the vehicle, put the vehicle in park, get out of the vehicle with their kids with doors open. Kids doesn't look behind if there's another vehicle coming behind. They just get out of the vehicle because mom or dad put the vehicle in park, and that's where the high risk for collision can happen. I can talk personally about collision that happened with kids in crosswalk exactly at the school zone. On that particular day, the kid was in the right of way to have the crosswalk. The driver was actually driving a truck with oversized tire. That means it was a little bit higher on the ground, and his level of sight, I can understand, couldn't see the kid, but he had a red light. And in order to proceed into an intersection, you have to make a proper stop. And when I'm talking about a proper stop, it's not slowing down, make sure there's no traffic and then turn. Or I'm not talking about what we call the American stop, like slowing down and keep rolling a little bit, and then engage. I'm talking about a complete stop. You remember when you guys went for your driving test, you had to actually do a complete stop. If you were not doing a rolling stop, you guys were losing points. Well, even if you have your driver's license for 15 years, the rules didn't change. You still have to do a complete stop before engaging into an intersection. Now, if I come back to the story or the anecdote, is on that particular day, as I said, the kid had the right of way to cross at the pedestrian, the crosswalk. The driver stopped. He looked on his right, didn't see anyone, didn't see the kid. He looked on his right, on his left, there was no vehicle coming through him. So he decided to engage and make a right turn at the red light. He was in the right to do so. What he did wrong is he didn't check properly on his right again, and he just stopped rolling and he hit the kid. Fortunately, it was at low speed. The kid did receive some minor injuries. Once again, obviously, the police get calls on the collision. Paramedic gets called on the collision scene. We also usually call for any peace officers that are available to do traffic control, because we have to do some scene containment and investigate. But also the hardest part of all this is for us police officers, and I'm pretty sure I'm talking on behalf of paramedics and also peace officers who are attending the scenes, and also who are parents that have to see that little kid on the ground. Doesn't matter if it's your kid. As a parent, you have to deal with the situation. But on top of that, us police officers, we have to deal with the parent afterward. We have to contact the parent, and we have to deal with the situation of the parent, on top of dealing with the driver who was in fault. From there, there's obviously criminal investigation that's coming out of it, or provincial investigation, whether he's getting charged criminally or provincially. But also, there's always the details that are happening in the backseat that most of people doesn't see. I personally spoke with the father of the kid, and we've been talking together, and we had victim services involved as well. Victim services is a great service that we have to our hand, and we're using them at all times because they're there to help people as well. And even the father, he told me personally that before everything happened, he was just a regular driver in the city driving around, and he was, I say, cautious of driving. But the way he was explaining to me is, until something happened to your own kid, driving in the school zone was just driving in a regular zone. He wasn't really paying attention outside driving the speed limit and make sure that he was driving on a green light or stopping in a red light. But now that he was actually victim of something, of his own kid into a school zone, the driver, because we had to do follow-ups with the follow after, and even the father told me that after that he always been extra cautious, because until you get victim of something, you don't get as much cautious as you should be. So my message today is, please, people, whether you are a parent or not, all right, for the security of our own kids, my kids, kids of people in this room, all right, be more cautious when you're driving into school zone. Right? If you have to do an extra step in driving 10 kilometers under the speed limit because road conditions are not good, please do so. You will never get pulled over by the police, or you never get a speech on roadside by the police because you're driving 10 kilometers under the speed limit because of road conditions. But you will certainly get pulled over for driving 10 over the speed limit, even if the road conditions are the best. So this is my message today.
My name is Dana Allen. I'm a Assistant Deputy Chief with Regional Emergency Services. I'm here speaking to you today because I am a 20-plus year paramedic on the job, and I am in charge of the people who are on the ambulances here in the district. And I'm also coming to you as a mother. And I think I'll do that first. I was mentioning a story earlier with some friends that when my children all went through their crossing the road safety courses in kindergarten, where my children grew up, there was a little course, and they could learn how to walk across little crosswalks, and it was in a safe area, and they learned how to ride their little tricycles safely. And the parents all came with the children, and we got on the bus, and when we got off the bus, 75% of the parents walked their children across the street in the middle of the street after spending the whole morning learning how to walk across a crosswalk. It's not our children that don't understand. We don't take the responsibility. And I can explain that in my job, we see intersection collisions all the time with not cars, but people. And what everyone needs to understand is there are more victims than just the person on the ground. We have to understand that the people who witnessed the accident are victims now. And the people, in emergency services, everybody who responds to an incident becomes a victim. And a lot of people don't understand that we, as paramedics and police officers, get more than our share. And none of us complain about it, but you have to understand that if you say, I listened to Melanie's story talking about her daughter, I can bring those stories back in my head. I can tell you the sights and the smells. And people don't understand that there's more ramifications than just whether this little tyke lives or dies. Interesting, Mark was telling the story about the man who turned right and didn't see the child. I went to an incident very similar to that, and had the little boy in the ambulance. He was 5 years old, strapped down. His mother is hysterical. We're having to calm her down for him. She doesn't understand why we have to strap him down to protect his neck, to protect his head. So when I went to start an intravenous on this little boy, I stretched out his arm, and he had tire track marks up his arm and across his body. How do you explain that to a parent? How do you justify your driving skills or your habits to a parent? Now, the end of the story is, the happy part of this story is the little boy, because their bones are like rubber. He survived and actually wasn't severely hurt and did very well. And I believe that my message is, you have to remember when you're driving, like we've said before, driving is a privilege, not a right. But you have to remember that when you're making decisions for me. You're making decisions for what I see and what I have to deal with.
Hi, my name's Kimberly Timmons, and I work with the Fort McMurray Victim Services Unit. I'm very pleased to be here today to speak on safe school zone and pedestrian issues. And I can come on two platforms. As the public education coordinator, my role is proactive in nature, but also as a member of the unit, I'm also reactive in nature. So if I may begin with the proactive component that I fulfill. As previously mentioned by one of the other speakers, I participated in the positive projects that have occurred in the school zones and around the schools here in Fort McMurray. And I've witnessed a lot of good habits, but I've also witnessed a lot of bad habits firsthand. And I think one positive I'd like to mention first is how the children were empowered for their own safety, how they take that message and they carry that forward. And I think what I found most disturbing as part of the project and volunteering on those was the attitudes of the parents and the driving public. That parents would randomly stop and park wherever was convenient for them, get out of their vehicle and grab their child by the arm and drag them across the street, not take the time to walk to a crosswalk, give 15 feet either way of where their vehicle stopped, but choose to cross the highway, cross the roadway, regardless of the traffic's going to stop for them or not, because that's their mission. They have the right to cross the road, and they're taking that child behind them. And in most instances, that child isn't beside them walking casually, that child is behind them as that parent drags them across. I found that very disturbing. I also found very disturbing that everyone's in a rush in the morning to go to work. But what about these innocent children that are walking on those sidewalks, that are crossing those crosswalks? That's their time of day. That's when we have to be a little more cognizant of our speed, of the areas that we're driving in. And certainly I saw a lot of that lacking among general driver attitude. And although I'm a mother, and I'm also a grandmother, I found that very concerning. My children, of course, are out of school, but certainly my grandchildren are coming up to school age. And I see that attitude of what my grandchildren will be facing when they go to school every morning. So there's certainly lots of change that needs to happen with the parents and with the driver attitude. Don't get me wrong, we have lots of parents out there doing great things. They're walking to the crosswalks, they're getting their children to school safely, and they're setting a positive role for their children, not giving them that false sense of security. They're teaching them the right way. But we do have a large majority that are not. And although that's based, in my opinion, specifically from the St. Martha School Zone project and how the public was behaving on the roadways, that can certainly be a fair assumption to say that's occurring at the majority of our school zones. So that's a big concern to me. So as a stakeholder with the Victim Services Unit, I'm passionate about being part of school projects like this, so we can go out, we can see where there needs to be change and how we can work together to initiate change, which is why we're all here today talking on this topic. So now I'd like to talk on the reactive side, aside from the proactive. As reactive, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Victim Services Unit, we respond to victims and families of crime, trauma, and tragedy, and certainly any type of incident occurring in a crosswalk when a child or an adult is struck by a vehicle. We are normally called on scene. I have been on a few personally myself. I can relate to the earlier story you heard from Melanie when she spoke about Brianna and the loss of life, and really how her life speaks volumes to all of us now, that her death was not in vain, that we can learn from what was lost by Melanie's family. And certainly as the Assistant Deputy Chief spoke, it's not just that one individual child when they're struck in a crosswalk. It's their family, it's the reverberating effect. It's the family members, it's the siblings, it's the friends, it's the school community, it's our community. But what about emergency service workers that respond to scene? So when we have RCMP on scene, we have our EMTs, our fire department, and victim services. We're all trained very well, that's our job, and that's what we do every day, but we're also human beings. For as finely trained as we are, we still have a heart. And although we can deal with the matter at hand, we never forget those people and those lives that we have the privilege to touch and work with. So on behalf of the Fort McMurray Victim Services Unit, if I can leave one message here today, it's to watch out for those crosswalks. Watch out for those children. They're smaller than a lot of the hoods, the vehicles that you see stopped on that roadway, so you never know when they're behind one of them. That our children are our future. And if we can make positive change in our driving habits, be more cognizant of those school zone safety areas, then if we can make a difference in one life, then it's all been worth the effort. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brad Agodness. I'm one of the peace officers with the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, and I've been there for 2 years. The reason I'm here today, I'm just going to talk a little about the habits that I see when parents are dropping off their children in school zones. One of my big concerns, safety concerns, is parents who decide to park their vehicles too close to the crosswalk. One of the bylaws that we do have in our community is you can't park within 10 meters. It's about 30 feet. Now, a lot of people ask, well, that's a long distance if you park too close to a crosswalk, but there's a reason why it's that distance, especially when a child needs to see the truck or car that's coming down the road, and the driver also has to see the child that's crossing the crosswalk. 30 feet gives you a lot of distance to look up and down the road, and a lot more notice for the driver as well. I see parents that park too close to the crosswalk, they park on top of it to bring their kid in the school. Now, my role isn't to necessarily issue tickets for that. I want to make sure that the school zones are safe as much as possible. Another concern of mine is vehicles that are seen parked in a no parking zone, because a lot of school zones have those areas, and there's a reason for that. Some of the roads have a curve in them. Sometimes they're over a bit of a hill, but the no parking zones they often are found on narrow roads as well. So those zones give more visibility to children as they're walking up and down the sidewalks. But the no parking zones, it's for safety, and I'd always advise people they need to park further away from the school zone, and perhaps they could walk with their kids to the school, because a lot of the school zones, they do have a lot of other places where vehicles can be parked. My third concern that I've seen are parents that get out of the vehicle and they're in a hurry and they'll run across the road with their kids and they don't look both ways. Every school zone has crosswalks, and they should be used because a lot of the streets are very busy, and most of the school zones that I've seen actually have crossing guards, and in a lot of cases the children themselves are at the crosswalks to help their classmates out, and I think it's a great idea. So in the end, it's the parking habits of the parents. They just need to take more time, park further away from the school if they have to. We just want to make it safe for everyone when the kids are being brought to school.
Hi, my name is Lorna Spargo. I am a member of the committee that has worked together to organize this webinar, but also as a school council chair for 2 schools in Fort McMurray, I see and have been privy to complaints and concerns by parents about driving. The majority of issues that we have in school zones are parents, but they're making quick last-minute decisions because they've got to get their kids to school and be to work on time right away. And so it's in that moment of haste that we make choices that put other people's children at risk. And we need to all stop and pause, because I don't believe that parents and drivers making those choices ever want to have to live with the consequences. We did a project with kids from grade 4 and 5 at 2 of the schools in the community, and we asked them to come up with messages for drivers that they want them to know. And they were amazing, and some of them said, this is my future. Watch out for me. Care for me like you care for your own children. And that's the message. Safe Communities Wood Buffalo and Fort McMurray has worked very hard on a number of initiatives to keep our kids safe. In this past year alone, we've worked on creating a pedestrian charter with a variety of stakeholders in the community, so that as we move forward, we're moving with the concept of children and adults being safe as pedestrians, and that those pathways are considered as equally important as the roads in our community. They have recently obtained a grant that will allow all children in Fort McMurray who are from the early childhood age up to at least grade 4 to have the reflective triangles that go on their backpacks. This initiative was one of the efforts made by the model school zone community at St. Martha's, and proved to be very successful at highlighting the children and increasing their visibility in the community, especially on those dark mornings when they have to go to school. Excuse me. Safe Communities Wood Buffalo also works to highlight safe tactics through bike rodeo, Family Safety Day, the National Walk to School Day in September, and then the National Bike to School Day in the spring. There's the Halloween Walk Safety Program that will start this year. The Safe Kids Week at the end of May. They work with the Road Safety Committee on creating initiatives for drivers. They're part of the Alberta Traffic Safety Plan. And they work with the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo and its stakeholders to improve connectivity between different locations for pedestrian safety. And that's just to name a few. I have a whole list and we could go on forever. There are people, stakeholders in this community who really, really care. They care about the safety of you and the safety of your children. And we need to work together to make those efforts and that much more effective. Thank you.